Good morning, White Sox fans. It's early. We're drinking, and we're ready to bring you today's dose of baseball, booze, and bullshit. Beefloaf, buddy, got a quick question for you. What are you drinking?
Oh, my friend. You know what? Old standby. Generally no free ads, but I'll give a free ad here. I'm drinking Bailey's Irish Cream in my coffee. That's the way I like to do these ones. Maybe I'll mix it up at some point, but right now I'm just gonna keep going with this bottle until we finish it. How about you, Chorizo?
I love it. So I'm going a little different today. I normally am a Bailey's guy, but I'm going in my wonderful Sox Machine mug.
Ooh.
Going coffee and amaretto. I'm on a little bit of an amaretto kick right now for the breakfast drink.
Nice.
It's quite delicious. I love it.
Beautiful.
And speaking of Sox Machine, this Tuesday we'll be doing a live stream of the game with the fellas from Sox Machine. So we'll be commentating over it, kind of like what similar to Apple yesterday, where it's not really total play-by-play. It's a lot of talk over, except we'll be good.
How dare you? I got to get in front of this. I'm getting in front of this right now. Okay. The Apple TV broadcast is absolutely fine. All right. The visuals are terrific.
Yes.
I love in the lower corner, they only give you one data point. And that data point is the probability of something happening. I saw a tweet.
Those are made up.
Okay, so they screwed up some of those because it was obvious like a guy would get a strike on him and then the probability of him getting on base would go up occasionally. Yes. They need to fix all that. But I think in general, that's like a good kind of a data point to have. We have these broadcasts where they have so much stats on the page. You don't need all that shit. You don't need so much data. One little piece of data of like, what's the probability of this person grounding into a double play is a nice piece for the average fan just kind of looking at it. There's nothing wrong with that. Secondarily, I saw so much of, this broadcast stinks, that the announcers stink. You know what? All of you that are just used to only your broadcast, you're the type of people that only do missionary. You're only missionary people if you hated the Apple broadcast. Okay, that's how you are. Because you can't adapt to any variety. I like something a little different occasionally. I've told you this before, Treasy. I think you could go do a baseball game and have a DJ just lay music behind it, do a live DJ behind that, and you would enjoy that game if you were open-minded enough to it. But people don't seem to be. They seem to be,
let me ask you,
I need Jason Benetti shoving these jokes down my throat, or I need, Steve Stone predicting every fucking play. Just sit back and enjoy the game and listen to dumb commentary occasionally.
Let me ask you a question here, Beef. So let's not compare it with the home broadcast, because obviously the home broadcast is going to be better. They're going to know our players. They're going to have everything at their disposal to know everything about the team.
Right.
These national broadcasts, they're jumping in and learning about the team on the fly. So they have very generic information about this. But let's compare the Apple broadcast, to the other national broadcasts. Where do you put this? Is this, like, I think Fox is terrible generally.
Yeah.
ESPN is generally awful.
Yeah.
Do you put it above those?
I would.
Do you think that it's the best?
Yeah,
the best of a bad bunch, basically.
Agreed, because the other ones are trying to shove so many cliches down your throat. Okay. I think it was Melanie Newman was the person who she was doing the play-by-play. Just a nice, straightforward play-by-play. Nice and easily digestible. Did she screw up a couple White Sox names a couple times? Yes, she did. She made a mistake and had to correct herself. Okay, I don't care. Shit happens right there. More of the complaints were about Chris Young. And Treasy, you and I talked about this before. Chris Young seemed a little unprepared. Like, he needs to be a little more prepared, but I think he could be just fine in this role because he is engaging. Like,
can they just put like maybe a desk in front of him so that he could have notes and he could have like a laptop or something?
Just give him dual screens, like
like you don't need, like, I get when Jason or Steve is like, I wonder how often this has happened in the history of baseball. We need the team to look this up.
Chris Kamka has it like that.
Right. You don't need to look up what years did I play on the same team as AJ Pollock. Right? Like, you don't need that crack staff to do that. You could just look it up. Like, I was on the same team as this guy.
Where was I in 2012? Like, that you should be able to figure out. I agree.
Exactly. But
Well,
but overall,
I've seen Jason's notepad because he sent me it after I won Sox Math years ago. You would the road ones you wouldn't get from a prize shelf. He like would send you his notes, and they're huge. Like it's a big sheet like this and a tiny print. It was like in high school when they let you have one cheat sheet for the thing, and you'd write in the smallest like archaic print possible. That's what it'd be like.
yeah, it felt like Chris Young had a few like main notes on the team, but not enough. And like I think that's him being new to it. I don't think that that's an Apple thing. I think that's Chris Young being new to doing these broadcasts, and I think he could get better, and I think he will get better. But overall, he was okay. When he was he kept hitting on the same notes. So like he talked about Tim Anderson swinging at the first pitch about 1,000 times, which Tim Anderson was doing. So I get why it came up, but like have like 10 more of those, and then he'd be good. I think
he did talk about the psychology of that. He said a lot of times if someone swings at a first pitch when the first time they come up, they won't do it the next time because they might feel like
I thought that was good.
I thought it was great because he's like, but not Tim. Tim realizes what pitches he can hit, and he's willing to swing at it again. He's confident enough in his abilities to do that.
Like if he had that for like 6 players on the offensive side, it would have been great.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I thought he had good insights, but you're right. There was a little too much, like they were bumping into stuff too much. It's like you had however long you've had to prepare for knowing this game is coming up, be a little more prepped on kind of that stuff. And it's going to be a much better broadcast.
It's going to be good. And I think if I'm looking at it, like how MLB should do this is Beef, remember back in the early days of cable when you would have your team playing on like Monday Night Football or whatever games there were nationally broadcast on like a cable station.
Yep.
Your local TV station would have it, and then it would be simulcast on the national broadcast for everybody else.
Yep.
So like the early ESPN games that would happen, things like that. I think MLB should move to that, where yes, these are going to be nationally broadcast on a streaming service. You're going to have to pay for the streaming service, but if it's your home team, you get it. Like you get it either free through that streaming service. Maybe they could do a location thing for that, or it's on Comcast. It's on NBC
it's on some
Sports,
regular channel that we get. Right.
Yeah, like that everyone kind of has. It's not on the streaming service. So I think if they did that, there'd be a lot less animosity for these things. I like the idea of the way they're doing it right now because they're saying like, hey, it's free. Go check it out on this station or on the streaming service. A station. I'm like 100 years old.
They're not programs. They're TV shows.
Go check it out on the streaming service and see their broadcast. And maybe, if for a select group of MLB fans, we will say, yeah, I'm either going to purchase the streaming service or I have this already, and I'm going to watch these national games when it's not my team. Right. When it's my team, it's going to be on my wherever I watch it.
Normally. Yeah, in my normal spot that I go to. Yeah.
So I think that's where they eventually need to get to. They're going in with a very hard-lined approach. Like later in the year, you're going to have to pay to see this, which people are not going to do.
Right.
But we'll see how it goes. But let's not focus on the broadcast so much anymore. Let's talk about the actual game. And Beef, is Vince Velasquez good now? Were you right?
I don't think so. Not yet. And I'm not prepared to say that yet. The game we watched last Saturday at Sox Park in the rain, Vince Velasquez looked great. Okay. Last night, Vince looked fine, but Vince, I think, partially took advantage of a very poor offense right now because when he was missing middle of the plate, they just weren't doing anything with that. So like Vince was fine and he didn't put everybody on base. He didn't get behind every single hitter like he was wont to in his first couple starts. He's realized to do less nibbling and just let them try to hit. Yes, Alex, we will bring back the 6 a.m. starts. Just didn't do less nibbling, but still he was missing in spots where you're like, man, a good offense would crush this guy. So I don't know if he's taking advantage of the ball or what, or if he just has the hitters maybe off balance enough with the repertoire. And it's one thing we talked about before the season, Treasy. You and I were thinking he was going to be in the bullpen. And your thought was, oh, man, if they're in the bullpen, they're going to trim down all these 5 pitches to 2 pitches and just say the most effective ones. The Sox, though, as a starter, are saying, you got 5 pitches. Now let's see which ones are best to attack which groups of hitters. And And they talked about in the broadcast too about how, they're having them come in with a plan each time. And it's not like don't just lean on your favorite pitch. Here's the plan for this team, and here's how you're going to throw this team. And he didn't look as effective as last Saturday, but it was good enough. It was good enough to put away kind of a weak offense. And he stayed away from the tough guys. He didn't really give in to the Devers and the Bogarts so much in this lineup, and he kind of, I don't want to say he pitched around them, but he was careful with those guys. And I guess when you're that fourth, fifth starter guy, that's what you want to do. You want to be careful of those guys, attack the weaker hitters in the lineup, and he did that.
There were a couple moments where I was like, ooh, that should have went a long way. Like there was a pitch to Bobby Dahlbeck that was, right down the middle. Like it was a four-seamer right down the middle. Didn't seem to have a ton of movement, and Dahlbeck just swung through it horribly. And that might be more on him than on Velasquez, right. So yeah, I agree. I think there's signs of life there though. And I think that, and not that this was the best broadcast crew of all time or anything, but they had them off balance because they were like, okay, here's what he's been doing. He's going away from the four-seamer. He's trying to, he basically pitch backwards, and he didn't yesterday. He was very heavy on the four-seamer, and I think they, to your point, they had a plan for him. This is how you're going to pitch this team. And I think if that's what they're going to do every game, and it's going to be different, and he can handle that, I'm very comfortable with a guy like that at the back of my rotation. When you talk about the front of our rotation, which we'll talk about now, which is today's matchup, we got Cease versus Pivetta. Mm-hmm. And it's a very simple here. Is Cease has been good. Yep. Pivetta has been bad. Yes. Thank you. We're done.
That's science right there.
But Cease moved up in the rotation. Do you think that is more so them just trying to keep their best pitcher right now on the same amount of rest and kind of, creature of habit style, just you're pitching every 5 days? Or are they like just maneuvering around trying to say like, let's keep Dallas Keuchel out of pitching as long as possible? Are we trying to win this game against the bad pitcher for sure, and then we'll see what happens on Sunday?
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I think there's some of the biding of your time with Dallas. There's also some of just, hey, let's get our best pitcher out there as much as possible, as much as we physically can get these guys out there. And I think we saw a little bit of that instinct with Tony last year, not so much in maneuvering the days the pitchers were starting on, but by pushing them a little bit in their pitch counts. A lot of times, the modern pitcher is I don't want to say babied, but they're more careful with the amount of pitches. And the White Sox were running up to 110 pitches. So Tony was really last year using his best guys more, because he felt that was an advantage. And I think this is one of those small edges that you get by, like, you slide Cease up and say, okay, Cease is going to pitch more often. He's going to pitch more recently. Over the course of a year, that adds a start or so, right? By doing that over 162. And you, at this point, you need every game you can get. We talked about it on the 108 podcast this past week. The betting odds had slid back down, and the White Sox had temporarily become not the favorite in the AL Central race as far as the betting markets go. They've slid back up there now with 4 wins in a row. But you kind of want to press the edges wherever you can. And I think this is an example of doing that. I don't know if it's maybe trying to line Dallas up for, hey, Johnny Cueto's available this next time around the rotation, or what the deal is with that, because they've got a wall of games coming up in a row. So maybe that is part of
they definitely want Cueto to get another start. The last start that he had is not what they want him to come out with. We got a question of how many strikeouts for Cy Cease today, and honestly, I think you're on the upper bounds of 8-9 strikeouts. Like you're looking at, like, if you're looking to bet this, like this you're looking at 8, 9, 10 strikeouts as where you can put him against a team like this with a lot of swing and miss in it. I don't know, Beef. What would you bet on today for Cease's strikeouts?
It's curious because the Red Sox are generally a patient team, but they're not walking as much as they usually do. And Cease has been so dominant lately. But I'm a contrarian a bit when it comes to betting. So I don't know if I will go that high today. I don't know if this is going to be one of those days where maybe he doesn't have what he had back on Monday when he absolutely dominated the Angels. Maybe the stuff slides back a little bit, and maybe you're looking at more 6 or 7 strikeouts, which is hilarious to say. Like, that's still a great performance, but it's not, 10 or 11, what we're accustomed to with the Dylan Cease start. So I'm going to say a little less on the strikeouts today. I think the approach against Cease is going to be to be patient and kind of look for things and not let Pitching Ninja expose you all day. Like, you don't want to be on gifts on Twitter all day. So I think that's the Red Sox approach, because their offense stinks right now. What other approach are you going to have? Like, don't go out there and swing away on Cease. So I think they're probably going to be a little more reserved. And I agree in the comments. Alex Root said Cueto was stinky in his last start. He was very bad in his last start.
He needs another start down there in Charlotte. Beef, I was trying to look it up to see if the market's up yet for strikeouts. It's not. I think they're going to wait for the lineups to come out, see how many strikeouts are in there. But I agree with you. You got to kind of watch the market and see where it's at. But I'm just high on how many strikeouts Cease is going to have against the Red Sox today. Let's talk a little bit about Nick Pivetta. So he's a guy who I think a lot of people thought that this guy's going to be just fine. Like, he's going to be a good pitcher. He has started out pretty poorly. And if you look at his pitch mix, it's a fastball, curveball, slider, mainly. I think he's got a changeup, but he doesn't throw it. The slider and curveball are a little high in the zone for where you'd want them. And what comes with that is your average exit velocity is like 92 miles per hour. So you've heard all of this coming into previous series. While the Sox have sucked, don't worry, they're hitting the ball hard. If there's ever a time to hit the ball hard, it's against this guy. He's a guy who's just like really poorly handling exit velocity. Like, he's just throwing balls that are getting hit very hard.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at his baseball savant, Beef, it is, we talked about this on the podcast. You've got the kind of the red hot on one side, and then you've got the blue balls on the other side.
Yeah, the limp side, exactly.
And he's very blue balled here, very blue balled. Everyone's hit him very hard. So to give you a little kind of like comparison, I said that his average exit velocity is around 92.5 miles per hour. Dylan Cease's is like 83. Right. Like, so that's the kind of margin that you're seeing. Like, and then, like, 9 miles per hour, I think anyone who's driven a car knows the difference. Right. Like, so it's going to be a very different feel for the Sox. The Sox could come out and really bash this guy, which we're hoping will happen. He is right-handed, though. I've not looked at his ears, though, Beef. I don't know how well-eared he is. Nathan Eovaldi, though, well-eared. He was endowed for sure.
Ear endowed. And you know what? Luis Robert didn't give a shit about how ear endowed he was.
Oh my God!
Him over the monster when he got one center cut. It's not like the White Sox hit great last night. They put across 3 runs against Eovaldi, and then they squeezed out the manufactured run. Adam Engel single, steal second, tag and get to third, tag and score home. Just totally using his speed. So I'm looking up a picture of Nick Pivetta. He doesn't look overly ear endowed. He looks like an average ear guy. So average ears, and then throwing his off-speed stuff across the plate. That's
it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's good. That's the White Sox love that, man. That's one of their favorite meals right there. That's one of the favorite things to eat.
Normal ears, bad spin. It's I like it. So, Beef, if we're looking at the team and we don't know who the starting lineups are, that's what's great about the way too early pregame. We don't know who's going to play today. Someone might be hurt. We don't even know. We could have done it even earlier. They might drop the lineup before we get done, and then we're going to be screwed. I won't look either. Who's going to be your guy today that kind of either has just a great game or comes out of a funk or whatever against Nick Pivetta?
He was my pick yesterday to hit a home run, and then one guy put the Disco Demolished puts up the thread like who's going to hit a home run tonight. I picked Luis last night. I'm going to pick Luis again because this is exactly his kind of guy. Like, he pounds guys that leave soft stuff over the plate, and that's kind of like because it's a read and react thing too with Luis. He's such a great athlete that if there's a mistake, he's going to just pulverize it. And this is a guy who's filled with mistakes. I mean, the guy came up as a Philly farmhand, and it was all this promise or whatever, and it never happened. And then he comes over to the Red Sox, and last year was okay. Yeah, okay, we see something here. And now he's back to stinking again. So I like Luis Robert in this spot. I like Luis Robert to come through big. and really just I like them shifting him to hitting cleanup. It's kind of interesting spot for him to hit cleanup there. You feel like you can, and it's I was thinking about it a little bit like Jose Abreu is big on trying to drive in whatever runs are on base in front of him, and he did that last night with the sacrifice fly. And so Luis might have kind of semi-clear bases when he's up there anyway. So you can utilize his power if there's people on base, but also if he ends up in the spot where Abreu's kind of cleared up the bases mostly, you can utilize his speed kind of in that spot. So I'm interested to see how long they go with Luis in the 4 spot, but he's got a ton of power, so it could work.
It's interesting because you're putting Pollock in the 2 typically for that to happen. And he's going to be my guy to break out of it today.
Nice.
So yesterday, I don't think he had a good game. He had a very bad game.
He did have one hard single. He did have one hard single, which was nice.
Yeah, Beef, it just doesn't look good. So, I mean, like, we talked a little bit about this, like that ball that was hit kind of it was just foul in right field, and it bounced into the stands. I think a healthy AJ Pollock gets to that ball.
Yeah.
He seemed very slow getting to that.
Yep.
Jackie Bradley Jr., tremendous arm, great throw.
Yep.
Healthy AJ Pollock is safe on that play.
Is it health, Treasy, or is it old age?
I don't know.
At some point, there's a regression in speed, and when I had looked at his sprint maps on Baseball Savant before the season, you could see in 2021 his speed had decreased down. He was a 90 percentile runner, and then he was in the 60, 65 percentile running. So I don't know how much of this is just age regression, how much of it, you're right, is a recent injury,
or is it?
But he looked slow.
Or is it fear of re-injuring oneself? Right? Like, is he not putting it into the gear that he needs to put it into because he's a little bit worried? Yeah. And that's another thing to consider. But I think today against Pivetta, he does some things so that he can just trot around the bases. So I think I feel like this is his time to like either put one high off the monster, and then he just rolls into second real easy, or he actually puts some balls out of the park today, in a park that you can definitely hit home runs in.
Yeah, for sure. Right-handed power thrives in that ballpark. Treasy, just a quick question for you. I don't know if you noticed this, but Tony La Russa put Lurie Garcia 2-3 spot because he wanted them to work some things out. And now Lurie Garcia is starting to hit. I know he was digging out of a big hole, but he's hitting the ball hard. Then he put Luis Robert off of injury in the 2 spot for a while. And now he's hitting for power and starting. Is AJ Pollock the next one that he puts up there high, tries to get him fastballs in front of these guys, and it works him out of a funk that he's in?
We're going to find out today. We're going to find out today for sure. And the question, though, to you, Beef, is if you are a manager, is the second spot in the order where you want to do that?
I think the spot right in front of Jose Abreu is generally the spot, right? Because you don't want to like put guys on base for Jose Abreu. I think is kind of the general thesis. So yeah, an optimal lineup building, no, that's probably a really bad idea. You would like to have a real good hitter at number 2. But in game 25 or whatever, when you're like, this guy is really dragging ass. We got to get him some pitches to hit. Maybe it is. I don't know. I know nothing about managing Treasy. Like that's clear. I mean,
he's trying to do the preseason, like spring training thing where they like go like, this guy's going to bat 7 times in this game. We're just going to keep batting him. But he's trying to do that with his lineup construction.
Like Jim Thome leading off every inning when he's coming back from injury in the Arizona League game.
Yes, exactly.
Like he's going to bat every single inning there's got out there.
I love it. Well,
Treasy, before we go, can I tease something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to be recording a podcast with our friends over at the Tainted Glove Network. I'm going to be on there with Yumper and Doughboy. And Sammy Mendelson's going to be on too. So Sammy and I are both going to be on this podcast as guests. We're going to be talking about mob movies. And so what's hilarious about this is it is a great topic, and I'm really looking forward to it. And they had to send in, some of our favorites or whatever. And I got the list of movies, and then they were like, well, one movie we really want to talk about is Donnie Brasco. And I've never seen Donnie Brasco, and I still haven't yet. So I've got to cram this before getting into the podcast tomorrow night. I'm well versed on all the rest of the movies that are going to be in the lineup, and I'm not letting you guys know which ones are. You got to go over to their YouTube, you got to go to their podcast and smash the subscribe button to listen to me and the boys talking about some mom movies. But I'm really looking forward to it. Should be really fun.
Awesome. I look forward to look forward to hearing it. So get over there and subscribe to that podcast too. That's over on the Tainted Glove Network. So go check that out. Our guys, Aloha, Mr. Han, and K Fids also podcast there. So yeah, definitely check that out. Beef, we gonna win today?
Of course, yeah. We're gonna whip their ass. We're on a roll right now. We're on the upswing. The Red Sox look like shit. They're not a good team right now. The Red Sox. Just watching them last night, that's a dead ass team. Like you kind of knew, like, and they just have so many zeros in the lineup. You can't have so much stars and scrubs. Like the old Red Sox teams that were good, you extend that thing. And like I saw in the comments, Alex Rude's like, yeah, Bobby Dahlbeck sucks now. And you mentioned it, Treasy. Vince missed middle, and he was like, he didn't do shit with it. So it's like, if they're gonna do that all day, like they're gonna have a hard time like getting much off the seats.
Yeah, and that's where I'm looking. Beef is like, there's a couple guys. Like I don't think that like the team is generally horrible or anything. There's a couple guys that will strike out 3 or 4 times against Cease today. Like it's going to depend on how many times he can get through the order. But they're going to strike out. So, all right, fellas, thanks for everybody who tuned in, having a great morning here. We'll see you guys on the Twitter machine for the game, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Peace.